How can nothing give birth to everything? This question lies at the heart of both modern cosmology and ancient metaphysics. According to contemporary physics, the universe emerged not from a solid beginning, but from a quantum vacuum, a field of potential energy. This vacuum isn't truly empty. It vibrates with possibilities that give rise to matter, light, and time itself. 8 centuries before quantum theory, the Andalusian philosopher Ibn Arabi described a similar reality. He called it Bahr al-Adam, the ocean of non-being, the vast unseen depth from which all existence arises. But Ibn Arabi didn't mean nothingness as absence or void. He described it as the hidden potential of being itself, the limitless source that continuously generates form. This lecture explores how his metaphysical insight connects to today's scientific understanding of reality, consciousness, and creativity. To begin, let's consider why modern life finds it so difficult to live with the idea of emptiness. In the modern world, nothingness is a frightening word. We associate it with death, loss, or boredom. We fear silence, stillness, and empty space, rushing to fill every moment with sound, data, and movement. Psychology has a term for this: existential avoidance, the tendency to escape inner stillness because it feels like non-existence. The human brain naturally resists emptiness. Neuroscience shows that the default mode network, the system that generates our ongoing mental story, becomes hyperactive when external stimuli fade. In silence, the brain compensates by producing inner noise, memories, worries, and self-talk. Many people feel uneasy sitting quietly without a phone. Within seconds, the mind scrambles to restore a sense of something. We claim to seek peace, yet we can't tolerate the very space where peace arises, the gap between thoughts. Ibn Arabi identified this condition long before psychology did. He suggested that what we call emptiness is not the end of life, but the origin of it. Let's see how his philosophy reframes this fear into understanding. Ibn Arabi, born in 1165 in Andalusia, was one of history's most influential philosophers of being. He combined rational metaphysics with spiritual insight. His works, including the Meccan Revelations and the Bezels of Wisdom, explore the nature of reality, time, and consciousness with extraordinary precision. He was known as Al-Sheikh Al-Akbar, the greatest master. At the center of his thought are 2 interdependent realities: al-Wujd, being, the manifest existence we perceive, and al-Adam, non-being, the unmanifest source of that existence. He wrote, "The forms of the world are the waves of the sea of non-existence." For him, the solid world we see is just a temporary ripple on the surface of an infinite field of potential, the ocean of nothingness. When Ibn Arabi spoke of Adam, or non-being, he did not mean total absence. He meant potential existence, the unexpressed possibility of being in modern physics. This resembles the quantum vacuum, which, despite its name, is not empty. It teems with virtual particles flickering into and out of existence. From this fluctuating field, matter and energy emerge. Similarly, Ibn Arabi described non-being as the field from which all forms appear. Much like waves rise from a calm sea, in psychology, creativity follows the same law. Research in creative cognition shows that the incubation stage, moments when the mind appears idle, is when new ideas form subconsciously. The prefrontal cortex relaxes, allowing novel neural connections to emerge, both in the cosmos and in the mind. creation begins in stillness. What appears as nothing is actually the space of infinite potential. For Ibn Arabi, being and non-being are reflections of each other, two faces of a single ocean. One is visible, the other invisible. In cognitive neuroscience, perception functions in a similar way. The brain doesn't directly record the world. It constructs it from fragments, using predictive models to fill gaps in data. What we experience as reality depends on the unseen, on what is missing as much as what is present. Modern physics offers another. Mirror, matter, and antimatter emerge symmetrically from quantum fields. Existence is defined by its counterpart. Form depends on formlessness. You cannot separate something from nothing. What we call existence only has meaning relative to the invisible ground that supports it. Reality is a dynamic mirror between visibility and invisibility, the wave and the depth beneath it. One of Ibn Arabi's most radical ideas is that creation is continuous, not historical. He called this process, Taj Talkauk, the perpetual renewal of creation. Every instant, being emerges from non-being and dissolves back again. This aligns with findings in both psychology and physics. The human brain reconstructs the world from moment to moment. Each perception is a new synthesis of memory and sensory input, a constant refresh of reality. Similarly, in quantum mechanics, wave functions collapse into definite states billions of times per second. What we call matter is an ongoing recreation. From this perspective, the world is never static. It is a stream of becoming, where appearing and disappearing are two sides of the same rhythm. The doors of nothingness are always open, pulsing through every moment of awareness. For Ibn Arabi, human consciousness plays a unique role in this system. He wrote, "The human is the eye through which God sees his own possibilities." Awareness is the bridge between being and non-being. When we observe, interpret, or imagine, we transform latent potential into form. This anticipates both quantum theory, where the act of observation determines reality, and cognitive science, which shows that conscious attention shapes neural networks and perceptual outcomes. The observer and the observed are not separate entities. Both arise within the same field of consciousness, the same ocean. Consciousness is not a passive witness. It is the interface where nothing continuously becomes something. Each thought, perception, and discovery is a small act of creation at first glance. Ibn Arabi's teaching may sound mystical, but it rests on coherent metaphysical logic. The common misunderstanding is that nothingness equals nihilism, the absence of value or meaning. In reality, Ibn Arabi's nothing is the possibility of all meaning. His metaphysical formula is simple yet complete. Being is actuality. What has taken form? Non-being is potentiality. What has not yet appeared? Neither can exist independently. Without potential, nothing could emerge. Without manifestation, potential would remain unexpressed. In quantum physics, virtual particles constantly emerge from the vacuum and vanish again, existence oscillating between presence and absence. This mirrors Ibn Arabi's idea that being and non-being are two expressions of one process. The same dynamic applies in cognition. The mind cannot recognize a figure without a background, sound without silence, or thought without stillness. Absence is the structural condition for perception itself. Reality is not being versus nothingness. It is being through nothingness. Ibn Arabi's insight is not only metaphysical, but practical. It transforms how we relate to uncertainty, silence, and change. Meditative practices that emphasize stillness, such as controlled breathing or sensory withdrawal, quiet the default mode network and reduce inner noise. Studies show that meditation enhances neural integration, improving emotional regulation and problem solving. By resting in emptiness, the mind reconnects with its creative baseline, the mental equivalent of the quantum vacuum. Modern psychology calls this tolerance of ambiguity, the ability to remain balanced when outcomes are uncertain. When we allow uncertainty, new possibilities emerge. Individuals comfortable with ambiguity display higher resilience, adaptability, and creativity. Scheduling time without input restores mental focus and emotional clarity. Periods of quiet re-establish mental energy, allowing the world to reform through you rather than against you. Adopting Ibn Arabi's worldview dissolves existential rigidity. Every experience, joy, loss, success, or failure, becomes part of the same unfolding process. Recognizing this flow reduces fear of change and promotes mental flexibility. Engaging consciously with nothingness cultivates presence, stability, and creativity. The absence we avoid is the very ground from which new insights, emotions, and realities arise. Ibn Arabi's Ocean of Nothingness reveals that what we call emptiness is not a void but a foundation, the hidden structure beneath existence. Being flows from potential, not permanence. Modern physics, neuroscience, and psychology now echo this realization. Silence, rest, and open space are not dead zones, but generative systems, in rational terms. Nothing is simply the precondition of form, the zero from which all equations begin. As Ibn Arabi might phrase it, what you call nothing is everything before it takes shape. When we stop fearing the void, we begin to perceive its function. The ocean of nothingness has never been empty. It is the living depth from which every form, thought, and heartbeat continually arises.